But, well, she tells us now for people who are blind, I guess, which is very good. Welcome all of you to Astrology Unplugged. I am Rick DiClemente out of Pittsburgh. Good to have you with us on YouTube, wherever you're coming from. If you ever want to join us and you are watching this on YouTube, just go to Google and type in Astrology Unplugged on 8 o'clock Eastern time, Thursday nights, and that will give you the link to get through. As for what's unplugged, you have to figure that out. We don't know what's unplugged, it's just unplugged. So one night we're going to have a contest and we're going to have right in balance. What does it mean to be Astrology Unplugged? As Claudia and I have determined, it's now Astrology Unplugged. What the hell? That's what it is. There's Teresa. Tonight we got some really interesting things. I want to go through a couple with you. Now, when I keep telling you about a planet hitting you, that's why last week was so important, astrologically, learning the speed of the outer planets. When a planet comes by and hits you, a lot of them hit you and they keep going by. Some planets come by and hit you and they go back and forth and hit you 3 times, some 5 times, some 7 times, mostly 3. But when a planet comes by and just sits there and goes back and forth a little bit, that is setting up the era. That's the era in for a long term. That's just like a guy coming by your house, parking a truck full of TNT next to your house, like an inch away, and he leaves, and the truck just sits there. And there are many, many days that truck's going to sit there, no problem. And there are many other days, okay, it's not always TNT. It could be love bombs. You never know what it is. Okay, so I'm going to show you how an arrow works because we were talking about Mars, and I keep telling you to carve Mars into your forehead. Always know where Mars is. Okay, all you smarty pants, where's Mars? Don't go look. Don't go look. Where is Mars?
Cancer.
It's in Cancer.
What degree?
What degree?
Don't look it up. Don't look it up.
It's towards the last.
Don't look it up. 21
look
degrees.
it up.
Don't look it up. 21 degrees of Cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, always know where it is. All right. Okay, here we go now. We're going to take a look at the United States chart as an example. Take a look at this. All right. Here is the United States chart. This is a chart. As I say, a lot of people think they're born around 5 p.m. Stephen Poplin has another chart he does earlier in the day, and it's very valid too. Nobody knows exactly because the records weren't kept that well to the time. And then this chart was updated by a famous astrologer named Sibley. I believe he was British. And then Dane Rogers, one of the great American astrologers. They rectified a chart. And when you take a chart and you move it back and forth a little bit according to events and working backward, that's called chart rectification. And in Solar Fire, you easily can do that by clicking this rectify button. And you see, you can move it back and forth by date, by degrees, up and down to get the exact position that you want. That's what rectification is. So the big deal is in the United States chart, Pluto right now, here's Pluto. This is 1776 at almost 5:14 in the afternoon in Philadelphia. Pluto started on his trail, and it starts for the next 255 years. And you can go study what happened when Pluto went over this, what happened when Pluto went over this, all these different times. You'll find major events, especially the Civil War. And Pluto's gone all the way around a long period. And right now, Pluto is sitting right here. It's going to be next February. So we're talking 6 months from now, just about. 6 months from now, Pluto will return. And when Pluto's that close, Taurus uses 15 degrees of orb. So the 15-degree orb either way means that Pluto has been in aspect with Pluto for about 10 years now. You seen any turmoil last 10 years? Okay. So now when Pluto's sitting this close, all through the next year, it's going to go back and forth. Whole next 2 years is going to go back and forth. That means the planet is in era. The era has been set up. And what do you think is going to happen when Mars goes right here? What do you think when Mars is going to be at a right angle? What do you think when Mars is going to be at a right angle? What do you think when Mars is going to go across there? What do you think is going to happen when there's an eclipse at this point? This is just like that truck that's parked next to your house with all this dynamite in it, all this potential kinetic energy, and then something else comes along and bumps it. That's what I'm talking about. So that's why I'm always telling you, know where Mars is, because watch this. It's really a big deal. And I'm going to just keep quizzing you on it till you get better at it, because even I forget where it's at. You just got to know. It's just too dangerous of a, it's an instigator, that's why. Okay, so you can see right now, look at where transiting Pluto is. Natal Pluto, this is 1776, 2732. Right now it's at 2635. It's within 1 degree. This is why things are so unsettling, good and bad. Now, look at Mars. Ever since Mars went into Cancer last few weeks, now Mars is at 21. Well, what do you think is going to happen when Mars gets to 26? And it's opposite that truck sitting by the house. This is why astrologers aren't magicians. They're not mind readers. We're looking at the planets. So this potential here of dire loss and tremendous turnaround, death and rebirth, is potential for all kinds of things. This huge powder keg that's sitting next to a huge powder keg is going to be triggered by Mars. What did I tell you Mars is? Where's the beef? Where's the beef? Okay, Mars is going to come by, and what is Mars going to ask when it gets here, or when it gets here, or when it gets here, or when the sun is here? The moon can trigger it, Venus can trigger it. These are the 4 aspects: square, conjunct to it, square to it, opposed to it, a square to it. So Mars is sneaking by. Okay, let's go take a look. When's it going to be there? Okay, now I'm going to tell you from experience, and you can count on this. Mars always strikes 1 degree away. 1 degree away. And it may even strike when it's exact, but it's usually even 1.5 degrees away, 2 degrees, stuff will start happening. But when it gets 1 degree away, watch out. Now, here's Mars at 21. We're going to move this by days. We're going to move that Mars up, and we're looking for 26. We're looking for 2632. 26, there you go. There's 2633. June the 5th. June the 5th. Next Saturday. 9 days from now. Mars is going to be opposite Pluto sitting on Saturn. Pluto sitting on Pluto, Mars is going to come trigger it. Then it's going to be exact, then it's going to start moving on, it will ease up. So in 9 days, watch Mars. I don't care what you say, I don't care what blanket you put on anybody's head in the Congress, anybody in any other country, the stuff's going to happen. And what's Pluto? The essence is, what's Pluto doing on Pluto? Pluto is back to examine whether the United States has been using its energy, its power, or abusing it. It's too late now. You've done what you've done. We're going to start answering for it. These are times, this is the kind of thing that happened with Pearl Harbor. I guarantee you Pearl Harbor was the trigger, but the planets were set up several days before Pearl Harbor hit. This doesn't mean it's going to all be nasty. There could be some really nasty things, some really great things. Usually it's both because the planet's so big and powerful. That's what's meant by an era is set up. And here comes the planet. Now, when months from now, when Mars gets at a right angle, it's going to happen again. When it gets at a right angle again, it's going to happen again. When it conjuncts that Pluto, whoo, Mars, well, let's tell you Mars, around every 2 years. It goes around every 2 years. Since Mars is opposite Mars now, in 1 year, Mars is going to be with Pluto. Mars is going to be with Pluto on Pluto. Now, the trick that will get you a little further insight is this. When something opposes something, it's likely to come to you by somebody jumping in your face. Hi, Shibley. Shibley, is his name? I can't hear you.
What is Shelby.
Shelby. Hi, Shelby. Okay. When Mars opposes the target, somebody will jump in your face or attack you or verbally or worse, or bomb you or bring your plane out of the sky. In Belarus. If it conjuncts, it's likely we're going to do something to somebody. If it's square, here's why the solar chart is so important. If the Mars is hitting from the, what is this? Is this your right?
It's our left.
Left? That's your left. Okay. Okay, so it's opposite on my screen. Okay, if Mars is hitting Pluto, which is on your left, Mars is coming from the 4th house. It's coming from within. I don't care what sign it's in. If Mars is hitting from the top, it's hitting from the outside world. It has to do with the world attacking you. There's your difference. When it's conjunct, it's coming from within. When it's opposite, it's coming from seemingly without. If it's square from the bottom of the chart, it's coming from within, home, like the people of the country erupting. If it's coming from the top square, that means it's coming from without. So what's going on? Here's the story. Whether it's foreign authors, whether it's foreign services, whether it's foreign dignitaries, whether it's their opinion, whether it's ours, if we're making progress, which means if we're starting to be called on the carpet for abuse of our energies, and we're starting to show valid efforts towards making those things equal and peaceful and loving, then it will lean towards wonderful experiences. And guess what happens if you just keep up your bullshit? Somebody's going to call you on it or do worse. Okay? That's what's called the era. The era is Pluto coming to Pluto. That's going to go on at least 10 years. That's okay, we've got to strip ourselves naked and really take a good, honest look at who we are. That's what the Pluto era is about. That's why it's gone on for 10 years. It's got another 10 years to go. And that means your identity, what you want to be. How many people you hear saying this now? Well, that's not really America. That's not really who we are. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And that's okay. But we're a cancer country, and cancer entities are not good at looking internal. They're not good at that. They just don't have that kind of strength. They're not made for it like other signs can. So that's why you're watching, and you got a heads up on this show. You're watching 9 days from now, and I'm telling you, whatever is going to happen has not even gelled yet. It's going to start gelling in the next 4 or 5 days. And when it gets close, and remember, we do have an eclipse coming, so you have to line those eclipse points up too. Are those eclipses happening at such an angle where they're affecting that Pluto? So in this case, we're watching for anything happening at 27 degrees cardinal, anything at 27 Capricorn, anything around 26 degrees Cancer, 26 Aries, 26 Libra. And since it's so close to the edge, you got to go into the next sign. So that's 1 degree Aquarius, 1 degree Leo, etc. I've got to mute everybody here.
It's also square the moon that day in Aries, no less.
Okay, now, The other thing that's happening in the chart is this, to talk about an era being set up. Look at what's happening now. In the natal chart, Neptune is in Virgo. I told you this. Look where Neptune is now. Neptune's gone around one time and one half. We're going through Neptune opposite Neptune and Pluto on Pluto at the same time. See, when the big planets do this, these are massive turning points. This is another era. Okay, and in this era, you're going to pay attention to tensions between the third house and the ninth house. Yes, in the natal chart, you're going to see truth come out of the third house and the ninth house. And also, if you take the target planet, which is Neptune, and put it on the first house, then transiting Neptune is coming from the seventh house. So we're being tested with all of our relationships in a Neptune fashion and a Pluto fashion. And while these planets are there, these are the times that are optimal for us to start to get with it when the energy is there. We've been off track spiritually. Let's get on track spiritually. Or let's keep bullshitting people. Oh, but I gotta tell you what that's gonna do. So we're under a Pluto era. We're under a Neptune, opposite Neptune era. Now, over the next 2 years, anytime a planet gets to those degrees, it's going to trigger those events that are sitting there. And this is what you don't hear about. This is what should be in the magazines when you're reading them weekly, because this is what makes the big, tough, big stuff happen versus somebody buying you a tube of lipstick. Something rather minor. Okay. So I wanted to just keep it real simple. Here comes Mars, going to hit Pluto on Pluto. You've already heard about it. It's 9 days from now. That will be the peak when it's 1 degree away. That's when the JFK has to sit there and decide himself that day, do I strike back or do I not? I mean, that's when the peak gets peaked. Because you can imagine the dynamite parked next to your house, Mars is coming by. Even theoretically. Don't shoot. All right. Now here's the next story, which is the main story I wanted to get into tonight. I did a chart of a woman recently. I'm not going to mention her name. Doesn't matter. She's just an example here. She's a Taurus lady that I read for recently, and she's dating this guy. And we were doing a normal reading for her, and it was going along very well. And near the end, she wanted to talk about relationships. In case you don't know, in astrology career, almost always in the old days, the whole talk was all about relationship. Now you don't hear that. Now you might hear something about relationships at the very end. What people talk about now is their life direction. Am I on track? Am I doing my thing right? Which is really good and very understandable. So I'm reading this woman, and let's just take a look at her chart. I couldn't find the other chart I was looking for, and I realized at the end it didn't matter. So I'm just calling her female here in this chart. Very delightful lady. Okay. So you got to start to think what you're doing. That's why you work in pencil. The sun is in Taurus. The sun is near the descendant. The sun is opposite Chiron. Chiron, sun are usually pretty good aspects for somebody who's interested in astrology, because astrology is very Chironistic. She got sun in Taurus. She got Libra rising, we think, because you're within 4 minutes here. There goes Shelby. She likes my voice. And then you got the moon in Cancer. What a wonderful combination here. You have the sun in Taurus, moon in Cancer. Really good combination. She's a hard worker. You got the two planets, the planets in the two signs of security and down to earth. And who marries each other all the time? The Tauruses and the Cancers. because the Cancer is all this emotion, and it's found its home in all the earth of Taurus. And the Taurus starts to dry up if it's too earthy, and it gets moistened by Cancer residing in its sign. So these are really, really good signs. The moon is not exalted. The moon is the ruler of Cancer. The difference between ruler and exaltation, a planet rules a sign, a planet is exalted in another sign. That means ruling the planet, ruling the sign, means the sign's a lot like it. It expresses itself well in that sign. And exaltation, the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. So that's the best place for the moon to be, for it to operate. That's how exaltation works in rulership. So we're looking at her chart, and the first thing we notice is a very massive T-square between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets. You got 6 planets in a triangle here, all pointing to the moon. So we know she's very Cancerian. Usually Tauruses are pretty warm anyway, but when you got all this Cancer, this woman is mother of mothers. She's a feeder. She takes care of people. She is very warm-hearted. Plus, we see that all these planets are opposite Neptune. So she's very much interested in non-Taurian things like astrology, numerology, palmistry, etc. Whenever you see a strong Neptune, you know the person is beyond just their sun sign. The next thing you see really sticks out is Saturn really is strong right on that midheaven. And you put in your zoom lens here. Look closely, 223, 320. And I'm doing that with my glasses off. That's pretty good. So Saturn is 1 degree from the midheaven. That's a big deal. And Saturn is in Leo. All right. Now, when we look at this person, we got a lot to do. When we look at this person, she got another planet in the middle of there. Wasn't that Pluto? Yeah, Pluto is 7 degrees inside. Okay, so what do you think you got when you got a Taurus with a moon in Cancer, and you got Saturn right on the midheaven in Leo, which is the edge of the 9th house, beginning of the 10th house, and you got Pluto sitting in the 10th house too. So you got the potential there for arrogance, somebody that know-it-all, I'm always right, blah, 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 because of all the Leo power at the top. And she certainly was not that way. And most women with Leo problems don't exert Leo issues that much. It's not that bad. Leo women are quite different than Leo men. Most of the time when you see potential for ego-powered people, Leo men are not good. They're not good. They fall prey to that, and they're never wrong, etc., etc. But anyhow, we know with Saturn. Remember, I told you, there's things you know about a chart. There's things that you're not sure about. You got to check them out. Well, you would see Saturn in Leo at the top of a chart. You got somebody who you don't probably want to argue with this person. This person's probably real strong, and you don't want to back this person in the corner. And they're going to come out fighting. So I didn't have any problem with her. She's a very delightful woman to talk to. So I get on with the reading. So what am I listening for? Okay? What am I listening for? Number 1, watch this. Here's her sun at 5 degrees of Taurus, which is square to Saturn, it's 2. It's square to Pluto at 10. Let's let that alone. This is all a T-square going to Saturn. So Saturn's very strong. So naturally, when it's right on the midheaven, those are 2 symbols of fatherhood, Saturn and the midheaven. So I checked out the father. How was the father in your life? He wasn't bad. So it's a good sign. So what do I look for? In May of 2011, at any rate, in May of 2018, in May of 2018, Uranus entered Taurus. Uranus entered Taurus. I told you last week, 7 years per sign. This is one reason you need to know this. Uranus is spending 7 years. What else did I tell you? That when Uranus hits Taurus people, they've got thicker skin than most people. The event will not happen. They will not feel it usually when Uranus is around there. Uranus was around this sun of this person around exactly 2019. So you would expect her life is becoming exciting. There are new changes. Well, she's just retired. She's looking for a new life. She's doing the right things. But now that Uranus is at 12 degrees, now she goes out and buys a Winnebago. She's going to keep her home, which is very Taurian, but she's going to go tour around the country for a while. Okay, now, with most people, with most non-Taurian people, they're releasing this Uranus energy late. It's happening late, but this is very typical for a Taurus. It comes through them. It has to stir inside them for a while. They're tempted towards it. They think about it. They read about it, but then the action comes later. And in this case, the action's coming 2 years later. Well, if I've learned anything in the last year, when somebody wants to go do something, go do it. Because Eris is squaring Pluto right now. We're looking at Susan in Cleveland. She's doing the same thing with the Winnebago. Go do it. People start to talk to me. Hey, Rick, should I? Yes, go do it. Hey, Rick, should I? Yes, go do it. I don't want to hear what it's about. You're considering it? Do it. Because the planets are so favorable when you start to do things as opposed to sitting on it, thinking on it, and worrying about it. Because I keep telling you what transits are shoots. There's shoots coming up from your plant. You're a plant, and the universe is sending its shoots up through you. So when you're considering going to do something, what you're really saying is, I sense this pressure inside bubbling up, and I really kind of think about sort of, kind of, letting it out. Well, good, let it out. Because we're really, really hesitant people, unless you're triple Aries. We're really, really bad about sitting on ourselves, not letting ourselves out, not letting ourselves go enjoy stuff, whatever, Protestant ethic, whatever, wherever it came from. But we're just not good about trusting what came up inside and letting it out. So people start, hey, Rick, should I? Yeah, go do it. Okay? And I really mean that. I'm going to need to mute all the microphones. Please don't unmute yourself at this time. Okay, I get feedback over here. Now, so I know this woman's doing the right thing. I'm investigating the rest of her life, and I'm not looking at what a planet comes by and doing this and that. I'm looking at, is the person attentive to the new shoots that are coming through? And the answer is yes, she's attentive. So what does she tell me? I'm dating a new guy. And I go, oh boy, isn't that a shock? I said, well, was there 1 day or 2 days difference between the date you bought the Winnebago and the date you started dating him? That's how it works. That's what it's all about. When you let go, when you start to move, when you start to let the shoots out, God's energy comes through you. I don't know how else to put it. Here's how I'm going to put it real clearly. And I don't mean this in an evangelical way. When you are hesitant and you are worrying, you are not allowing God's energy to get through you. And God's energy is built inside you, comes through you. That's what you are when you talk and when you love and when you express yourself. Well, when you stop it, it's like clamping a hose. And when you clamp the hose, that's when they go to the astrologer. I don't feel good. I'm losing my job. Nothing's working right. My back hurts. Everybody hates me. Blah, 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 blah. Doesn't even matter what they say. What's happening is they got the stupid hose clamp. And God keeps sending, I'm using that word, the universe They keep sending you this wonderful energy, you won't let it out. But when that person starts to just unkink it, the drops start coming through, the water starts coming through, they're getting some color in their face, things are starting to work, they're getting job offers, and by the time it's opened up, it's just a flood. That's how it works. You don't get lovey-dovey from Venus coming by. You don't get lovey-dovey because of Neptune hitting your moon. You get lovey-dovey when you're opening back up and you're ready for it. Then you can go and look for moon transits, Venus transits, and you can get the fine timing. So anyhow, so I've checked her out. Now she wants to know the typical terrible question, is this guy good for me? All right, the typical terrible question. What if I say yes? What if I say no? They're just not a good question. All right. So the number one thing I'm listening to is my teacher from 1978, Stephen Arroyo, who's an expert, retired American astrologer. Always planets in the 7th and 8th house, a Libra, the expert on relationship astrology. If you want to learn about relationships, read Stephen Arroyo's book, Arroyo. He's got several really good books on relationships. He says, before you ask whether Marcia and Rick are going to make a good couple, you'd better go look and see what's Marcia's ability to have a relationship. Well, what's Rick's ability to? I've seen people, and I've blended charts together. And the way you blend charts together, we'll take a side trip for a second. There are two ways to blend charts. One, it's called a composite. You just put one chart in the computer, put the other one, and the computer figures out the midpoints. Your sun is here, your sun is here, the midpoint's here. Your Mars is here, your Mars is here, their Mars is here. And you get a whole new chart. It's called a composite. I've done thousands of them, and they're pretty good. They have their problems, but it does tell you what the dyad is like, what the relationship is basically like. The other way of really studying, very detailed, slower, is by synastry. What is your Mars doing to my chart? What is your Mars doing to my Venus? What is your Saturn doing to my Neptune? And you put the charts up in the computer. We used to do it by hand. The computer analyzes, well, your Saturn's opposite my moon, and your Neptune is on my sun. And you can derive from that a lot of intricacies in a relationship. So before that, Arroyo says, well, I've seen people with marvelous composite charts and a terrible relationship. I've seen people with marvelous composite charts, but the relationship stinks. Why? Because one or both of them is not able to have a relationship. So with that knowledge, I go studying her chart. And I'm sitting there relating to her when I'm reading to her. And I'm going through her past, just in general. What her relationship's been like? Are you widowed? What's happened? So the woman is getting my check mark. She seems like a very nice lady who seems to be very much ready for what relationships are all about. And that's about intimacy and comfort. So I put the guy's chart up, and I couldn't find him tonight. I couldn't find his name, but I remember it. I put the guy's chart up, and he's a Scorpio. And he's got several planets in Scorpio. So we're talking about what the relationship's like. She starts telling me they're both probably about 65. Excuse me. So what am I looking for? I'm looking at his chart because he's a Scorpio. And what are the two signs of the zodiac that want the relationship to work, and they're right next to each other? Libra, Scorpio. Libra is not as deep as Scorpio. Scorpio is real deep, the deepest. All right. So I got to ask myself, because the guy's not there, and I don't want to ask through somebody. I want to know, what is his ability to have a relationship? All right. So with a Scorpio, and relationships are everything to Scorpios because the power that is given to us from the combination of all their different archetypal powers. Pluto, the ruler, is very deep, and they're very passionate, and they're very much based on fixed water. A fixed water sign means I will love you forever. My feelings are fixed. They will never change. Scorpio is all about betrayal. I will never betray you. I will never betray you. Heavy stuff. So I see all a Scorpio in this chart, and I see that this relationship to him is real important. Secondly, he's come to her when she got her Winnebago. You got to remember, there are different people out there. We're all one thing. It looks like we're all dancers on the stage, but we're all one thing, kind of satisfying each other somehow. It's very complex. I don't understand the quantum world that well. But I know, what do I check out next? What planet is hitting her? Since Uranus is hitting her, and he comes into her life, he is the embodiment of Uranus in her life. And what do I check out next? Pluto, because he's Pluto. What is Pluto doing to her? So I look in her chart. What is Pluto doing in her chart? Pluto is at 26 of Capricorn, so not too far distant. It has opposed her moon. Okay, so when we answer, what is he in her life? He's either her Pluto transit and or her Uranus transit. In either way, he's there to really have a big impact on her. Typical Cancer Taurus is about coming together, making lunch, and being very comfortable. It's not about making major moves in your own evolution philosophically and spiritually. Just isn't. So we know his Uranus came into her life. What does your Uranian person do? It always comes through a person. He's there to teach you that you are fine the way you are. Hey, you're pretty cool the way you are, just like John Hayes told us about Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers was the ultimate Uranian person, even though he was Pisces. He was just always teaching people, hey, you're great the way you are. That's a Uranus transit. On the other hand, he's Pluto. All right. Now, when Pluto comes through, Pluto does one of two things. It's there to help you, it's there to hurt you, and it might do both. And this ain't from a book. This is from observation. A Pluto person comes to you to teach you that you're tougher, you're deeper, there are deeper parts to life, or they're there to take stuff from you because they consider you to be weak. And some people are kind of schizo, and they do both. So now we're talking. So now when I look in this chart, I see 3 planets in Scorpio, and the other 2 planets are opposite, and they're in the sign of Gemini. In his chart, he's got 3 planets in Taurus, he's got 2 planets in Gemini. The orb is not close. They're out of sign. But now what you start to see is I said, this is what you have to watch for in this man. I'm not going to tell you he's the perfect combination or that he's bad. Your chart's in good shape. But see, no matter what, her chart is undergoing energetic change because new shoots keep coming through. That's what energetic change is. Are you going to let it out or not? If you look closely at her chart, she's not being hit very much exactly by something. So I don't feel too much of a threat. So my problem comes in, do I think this person has a problem with committing? Yes. Do I think this person, this Scorpio, that really wants an intimate relationship, do I think he has a problem with committing? Yes. He's got 3 planets in Scorpio. They're opposite 2 planets in Gemini. Well, Gemini is all about, I'm putting my toe in the water, I'm getting out. Oh, get in, get out, get in, get out, change the subject. They're in the solar 7th house of relationships. So he's got the Scorpio stuff opposite the Gemini stuff. So I told her, without a doubt, that he's got this tendency to not want to commit, but he does. He wants to commit, but he doesn't. Okay, stop there. What's a Scorpio all about? These are the things you have to go through in your mind. A Scorpio is all about, I will never betray you. And I expect the same. You will never betray me. Well, we know he's got these Gemini planets, and they get bored and they want to stray. They want to stray. So what you have here, the next issue you got to bring into this is the number one difficulty with the Scorpio. Well, there really are a couple, but one of the top ones is they have a strong tendency to hate themselves because they put so much requirement on themselves. So I think this guy starts to stray. He starts to beat himself up about it. He betrays himself about it. Then he beats himself up in the relationship. So how's he going to stay in a relationship when he wants to stay and he wants to leave? How's he going to stay in a relationship where he wants to stay, but he also wants to leave? Where his innards are all built around honoring himself if he stays, committed, devoted, and he can't stand the part that wants to stray. But they're not an aberration. These Gemini planets didn't just end up in that chart. They're there because he wants to explore. He might be a fine husband to be dearly devoted to her, and in a couple of days, a month, he goes out and hunts or goes and does what he does, and he explores, he gets his freedom and comes back. It might work out great. It might not. So when you're reading that, this is the intimacy that you have to look for when you're combining people. So when you're looking for this stuff, you ask yourself the number one question. Does she have a tendency to bullshit herself? Okay, so we got to go look at her Neptune. That'll tell you. Does she have a tendency or a history of bullshitting herself? Well, what do you know? The planet of love being opposite Neptune. And Linda Platt just covered her forehead. Here's the planet of love at 1 degree. It is kind of far. It's 7.5 degrees away. It's at the base of a T-square, and it leads to her moon. You know what that means? What that means is this. Whenever you get the moon Venus combined in the chart, what that means is you think a problem through very quickly. Now, you take your time, you think the problem through, and you've got it logically figured out, and you know exactly what to do, and then you go ahead and do it emotionally anyway. You throw away all your logic, and you do, oh, yeah, but I love it. It really feels good in his arms. Okay? So we got a problem here. We got a problem. I'm not going to get into the danger of predicting how long it's going to last or what, but I know, and I told her the following. I think he's got a lot of really good traits about a relationship, but I think he's really got a tendency to stray and to not commit. And I would really investigate what happened in this past relationship, what happened with his mom and dad, and eventually what I would really do if he were in front of me, I would investigate his past lives. Because what non-committal has to do, it got nothing to do with a relationship. Non-committal means that you want to go to God, but you don't. All charts are maps of God. Are you going back to God or not? Are you going to just talk about it? Okay, that's where it comes from. It all comes from the 12th harmonic. It comes from that chart that shows us. So I said, here's what I would do if I were you. I would proceed, but I would not take lightly if you start to see him starting to want to stray, because when you got Venus opposite Neptune like she has, people with Neptune troubles in their chart, they always start by their knee-jerk reaction is to blame themselves. Oh, it's me. I must not have done something. But maybe it ain't you. Maybe it's him. And I would say you're going to have to be very sensitive, because I remember another thing in his chart. He had a T-square to Leo. And I said, you're going to have to be really careful not to kid him about this. Oh, you're having trouble committing, aren't you? Well, committing's a big thing for you, isn't it? He's got a T-square to Leo. You don't kid Leo planets about that stuff. He'll bust wide open. You don't know what'll happen. If you ever want to see a temper, go look at a Leo temper. If you ever don't want to see it, don't look at a Leo temper. Very volcanic. So I see this Leo. So I tell her, what you've got to do with this guy is give him some leash. If he starts to stray, let it be a little bit. Don't confront him with it. But if it starts to become a problem, you're going to have to confront him. You don't have to get all angry, crazy about it. You're going to talk about it. But you're not going into this blindly. Plus, this has been brought up to me and you. This has been brought up and exposed in our joined vision here. This means you should know about this. I said, I don't have him in front of me, but I guarantee if I had him right here, he would agree with what's going on here. And he would probably say, I don't know why. See, a lot of people, whether it's Aquarian or Gemini, a lot of people are afraid to commit because they think they're going to be tied down and they're not going to be able to be themselves. Well, I've seen a lot of people who were able to be themselves better once they joined with somebody. I used the example 10 years ago, when I had these two wonderful Aquarian people, male and female, they got married. And Aquarian of anybody, they're the ones always watching their ankles. They just can't stand an iron ring around their ankle. Forget it. You ain't going to trap me. But they were talking about once they'd gotten through that and really committed to each other, all the freedoms open and run up. And all the fears of being held back were really nonsense. They did go 4 or 5 years in divorce, whatever reason. But a lot of times, this fear of being committed, not being committed, of committing to someone else is ill-founded. So I had to leave it at that. Then I started to think when it was all over, well, you got these 7th house planets in his chart. She's got a natal difficulty with Venus opposite Neptune. And the propensity with the T-square to the moon is all just love him anyway. Isn't he really sweet? Isn't he just sweet? You know, you let the guy have too much slack. Well, she's in her late 60s. It's not a time for a really bad marriage. It takes big chunks out of it. All right. But it was an intriguing chart. And that's the kind of stuff that you can see when you do deeper astrology and you start to blend all these things together. Because, to reiterate, you've got a Scorpio man who wants his woman. I'm too afraid to ask God about his past. When you have a Scorpio person, you do not want more than one planet in Scorpio. You just don't. Some people are very successful, 3, 4, 5 planets there, but it's not very normal. Because the more Scorpio you get in the chart, turns them towards taking, vampiristic. The urge to blend becomes, I'm going to steal your energy. What's yours is mine. And she's as good-hearted. Let me tell you another thing I've learned, okay? As you know, I study a lot of serial killers, a lot of killers. I study a lot of people. And the number one victim I've learned, this is shocking. I already figured out who the perpetrators are. The number one victim I've seen in all of astrology are Taurus people, without a doubt. And I try to think why to understand it. I think it's because they're just really simple people. They're very down to earth. They're really nice people. And once you make it in with them, you're in, and it's hard to get back out. That's why it takes time to get in. And I told you about their thick skin to get things started. It takes a little bit longer, but once you're in, you're in. But I've seen so many victims that were Taurians. Very, very sad. because they're very trusting, loving, warm people. So in her case, what I would do if I had the two in front of me, I would go much deeper into the 12th harmonic, which is the spiritual chart, the spiritual transcript. And I would have a talk with him about this need to one, be attached, and two, to have 1 foot in the water, 1 foot out. What is it? Why is it? We would investigate that. Okay. And I would also have to work real hard with the final thing is you can't keep listening to this Venus Neptune. The Venus Neptune says it's always la, la, la roses. And it ain't always la, la, la roses. Okay? Venus Neptune can be dangerous. Okay. Now, since we're rolling along here, the final thing I was looking through my notes that I wanted to discuss tonight. Well, let me stop for a second and talk to Linda for a second, because I know Linda's got she's got the Libra nature. Let me ask to unmute her. Linda, what did you hear in that story?
Well, I was struck with the fact that the Venus Neptune, the Neptune is in the 12th house, and that worried me almost more because I mean it's almost, you know, that sort of the idea that the 12th house is sort of a dark house. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to know. It's where secret enemies are and all that kind of stuff. And it just seemed to me that if you've got that moon, you know, the T square to the moon, and the Neptune is in the 12th house, that would mean it would be more likely that she would ignore really negative things that might be problematic.
You're exactly right. And another thing I noticed, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I could not believe it when I saw it. And I zoomed in and I saw Venus and Mars with Eris at the midpoint. Not just Venus, Mars, Eris, at the midpoint. 4 to 5 degrees different here, 4 degrees different here. You have Venus and Mars separated by 9 degrees, which is a symbol of tremendous fire and capacity and charisma. Mercury nearby, and put it at the midpoint, put Eris there. And it's right opposite Neptune. So she's got a capacity, she's got a tendency to, even though things may look dismal, hell with it, I'm just jumping in anyway. That's the fiery of Aries.
Well, and I just, you know, and I'm not, you know, I don't have an issue with the 12th house. I mean, I'm sure there's, it's got its good side, but you know, and the thing about Neptune, that could either be deeply spiritual or it could be deeply delusional.
Deeply deceptive, yes.
And so,
exactly right.
And one of the problems with him being a Scorpio, and this is me with a Scorpio ascendant and a Scorpio moon, you know, I know myself, I'm really hard to know. A lot of people really have a hard time sort of getting, because there's just, you know, a lot of depth, and I don't mean that as patting myself on the head. I don't even know where the bottom is a lot of the time.
That's
Do you know what I mean? So he may be hard to read in the first place because of his chart, and then, you know, she's got that tendency. So I think your advice was very good, but my guess is she won't take it. She'll just jump right in.
Yeah, my guess is that too, and my guess is they're in for some rocky road here. But what she told me, I forgot this. She told me that he was very spiritual, and when you have and their composite chart shared a very strong Neptune, and when you have a composite chart with a strong Neptune, that means that you're going to deal with spiritual matters, period. You're either going to deal with spiritual matters, or you're going to go back in the alley and shoot up and drink a bunch of alcohol. You're either going to escape or go towards spirit, but you're not going to avoid it one way or the other. And she said, oh, no, we're both really into it. We're doing spiritual work together. So it remains to be seen, and it all works out in the end. Thank you. I knew that your 2 cents would be real good. Thank you. All right. Now, I want to talk to you about the body, okay? And I've done this, I think, 10 years ago on this, 10 years ago on my documents, but probably 100 shows ago on here. This is episode 225. Okay, the planets rule the body, the signs rule the body, and I want to explain to you how it works, even though it's really mysterious and it's really difficult to do, but I'm going to give you the generalities, okay? I want to show you a book. I'm going to pause this. Are we enjoying ourselves, Claudia? Getting there?
A whole lot.
Good.
That was really great.
Good. I mean,
what you thought about with her, with him, and just the watch outs, that self-sabotage. I mean, and the delivery of that message, I'm sure, was just great. But
it's difficult.
It sounds like she was, an open person, open enough to hear it at least on that day, whether she'll do something about it or not.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Now, this is an old book, as you can tell, beaten up, called The Rulership Book, written by Rex Bills. Rex, R-E-X, Bills, like in the bills are due. Rex Bills, it's not really well written, but it's got its value, 1971. And the book is amazing because he and his wife, I guess, spent a tremendous amount of time writing about florists are ruled by Venus, flowers are ruled by Mercury, four countries are ruled by Sagittarius, national glories ruled by the sun. He goes through everything he can think of and assigns it to a planet, or he goes backward. And he's got major chapters in here, like Mars can be eagerness or eagles or the ears or effort or effrontery or emphasis. So he takes all the keywords on planets towards the meaning, and then from the meaning back to the planets and with the signs. So I found in this book, like these are the following list of all the things that Scorpio rules. So it's a good place to look. I found my problem with him. He's sometimes too vague and sometimes he's picking 3 or 4 planets instead of picking one. But it's a good book to start with if you're wondering why every time something happens in my sign of Sagittarius, do I have something happen to my sinuses? Why? And you want to know what are the rulerships of these different things. So I'm sure it's still in print. I really think he would have benefited by putting out a second edition that was much more finely tuned. But it's the only one I've seen, and Liza and I use it, Rex Bills, and it is a good reference book for you. Okay, now, whatever reason, the planets start from the top to the bottom. The signs go from the top of the body to the bottom. I don't know why, but I know if you're in a Saturn transit and you wreck your car, the odds are really great that you're going to hurt your knee. You're not going to hurt your foot, not going to hurt your head, but you're going to hurt your knee. I don't know why in the world this happens, but it does. I will guarantee you. As we saw with the tremendous problem with Tiger Woods and all his Uranian issues, and he splintered all these bones in his lower leg. Uranus rules the lower leg. Okay, so I'm going to go through straight by telling you what the planets do, what they're known for, and these are pretty sound ones that you can count on. There are obscure definitions that you can keep researching. The head is all about Aries, and it's also about Mars. When Mars hits something, or your Mars gets hit, or you're in Aries, you're typically having a lot of issues in your head. Head aches, migraines, blows to the head. Aries people have a lot of head injuries, and that's because they die first and they think later. But the head is definitely an Aries area. It's just that simple. I don't know why. I don't know how this works, but it does. The neck is really, really Taurian. It's very Venusian. It's definitely shared by Taurus and Libra. Taurus being second, Taurus people are commonly known for very throaty, deep voices. Oftentimes, when you see people with throat cancer, it's their Taurus area of their chart. So Venus rules the neck. It also rules the kidneys. But the neck, I'm going straight through the body first. Venus rules the kidneys. Venus also rules the neck. Venus rules your bloodstream. Okay, those are really one-to-one correspondence. You're not stretching at all to get those definitions. They're very, very common. Mercury's a really weird one. Mercury rules your hands all the way to your shoulders, all the way across, all the way to your other hands. Okay, no doubt about it. And definitely Mercury, I have found with experience, has a lot to do with learning disabilities, learning abilities. When you mess up your shoulder, when you mess up your fingers, those are usually mercurial. I guess it's because you're reaching out. You reach out with your fingers to grab things. I'm not sure why the connotation. But Rex Bill's chart book can really help you with these kind of thoughts. Mercury is almost always right across. Now, I found Virgo and Chiron. I find Chiron rules Virgo. Now, Mercury is another co-ruler of Virgo, and without a doubt, Virgo is the ruler of your intestines, upper GI intestinal area. As a matter of fact, it's the #1 problem physically in astrology. With all the ailments I've ever heard of, the #1 ailment is people with their Mercury being hit, their Virgo planets being hit, their Chiron being hit, and having trouble in the upper GI. It's really common. And what I've figured that to be, a lot of it is because you're not letting go. The GI tract works well when you let go, and the stuff can flow through you. And Mercury can be very much effective of that, in terms of mentally getting uptight and not letting go. I don't know why exactly all this is. Okay. The breast area, the chest, the stomach, is the moon. It is Cancer. It's very much the breast, very much the stomach. A lot of cancers have stomach illnesses. One of the things you can tell almost immediately about people, when a woman is large-breasted, it's almost always a strong moon, strong Cancer. When a woman is small-breasted or small hands, small voice, small fingers, that's almost always Mercury or Gemini or Virgo. Gemini, Virgo, small-chested, small hands, small body, look very young when they get old, youthful appearance. Those things are very mercurial, okay? The moon, however, I really don't know about doing anything else. I could look it up, but the moon is always the breast and the stomach. I don't know exactly why. Very common. Sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Mars is the head, Jupiter. Jupiter is next. Jupiter is an interesting one. I don't know why it is, but without a doubt, it is the sinuses. People with troubled sinuses have Jupiter issues. It took me years to figure this out, but I landed it, and I see when it happens to me, it is a Jovian attribute. Jupiter, Jovian, sinuses, etc. I don't know why. Jupiter is also clearly the hips, the major muscles in the upper thigh, the hips, the thighs, the major motion. Where does the major motion come in your body? Comes from your upper legs. Those areas are Jupiterian, also known as Jovian, after the god Jove. So Jupiter definitely rules those areas of the body. The sexual area, genitals, anything that's got to do with release, is all Scorpion. It's so common when people have Scorpio problems, Pluto transit, they have problems with the prostate, they have problems with sexual disease, they have problems with cancer of the colon, etc. So those things are very Scorpionic. Thus, they're co-ruled. Since Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars, Mars can sometimes be an indicator of what's happening in that area. So we're moving down the body and through the zodiac. Now, I don't know why the mystery is so phenomenal, but you go to Jupiter and you're at the hips and you're at the thighs, then you go to the knees. And the knees are absolutely Capricorn. Absolutely Capricornian. Most Capricorns have messed up knees, and it's a sign of not being flexible enough. That's why it happens. And when you have to advise a Capricorn, you advise them to stay loose, to be more limber, do more yoga. Now, Capricorns are really unusual exception because it has about 6 things that are real strong, and they're all Capricorn. Tooth problems. I just had my Saturn just hit me. I had my first tooth removed in my life. Saturn, the teeth, all the hard parts of the body. Okay? The teeth, all the bones, all the joints, the skin, because the skin contains the body. And Saturn has a ring around it. Okay? Teeth, knees, bones, joints, skin. That is Capricorn or Saturn. Now, as you move down the leg, it's really interesting. The middle part of the leg is Uranian, between the knee and the ankle. That's Uranus, and that is Aquarius. The other thing Aquarius rules is circulation. I don't know why, but these things are guaranteed. These things are hardcore, fast rules. It's not the ankle, it's not the knee, it's in between. So I can guarantee that's why I told you when Tiger Woods had his problem with his lower leg, his problem was because he was stopping himself. Here he was going 80, he was going too fast on an old twisty road. So it wasn't that, but something was leading up to this. Something led up to that week where he had his accident, where he wanted to do something to release himself and he wasn't letting himself go. That's what's behind his wreck. Whether he wanted to get out of golf, go have a career doing this, it's a major change. He was not letting himself go. It was a Uranian problem, and that's why he got tremendous Uranian results from it in his lower leg. That's how it works. When the knee problems happen, or the skin problems or the tooth problems with Saturn, because you're denying, you're not dealing with that Saturn shoot. That Saturn shoot that wants to come through you, and it wants you to be more responsible and more down to earth, etc. So it's always related to the whole circuitry of astrology. When you get to the ankle is definitely Uranian. That's right. Below the ankle, that's all Pisces. I don't know why. The foot is at the end, and feet problems are Pisces. Other things that are Piscean are the liquids of the body, endocrine, fluids in the body. But the thing that's really true about Pisces is they investigate and they can't find anything. They examine you real close and they see it's there. They don't know what it is. It's a virus, give her the pills. So it's typical Neptune. It's there, but it's not there. In most cases, when people have Piscean problems, most cases, I tell them, I'm not a doctor, but in most cases, it's psychosomatic. It's going to pass. It's not a big deal. You're just real sensitive now. That's what happens when Neptune hits you, or when you have a strong Neptune natally. You're just too sensitive. Now, get this. Your power is that you're sensitive, and your weakness is that you're sensitive. It's both. So a lot of Pisces people go crazy with allergies. I know people that go in their house and they've got everything they own inside plastic bags. It's just unbelievable. And they have to interview about where you were, what you touched, or where was your cat. And it's just, they're just that allergic and that sensitive. Now, I can't sit there and say they're right or wrong, but a lot of what fixes Pisces people, without a doubt, is to become tougher and also to become not so sensitive, not so thin-skinned about stuff, and not so much hypochondria, realizing that mentally you can overcome things. So that's the basic shot of the body. We got 12 minutes left. So if you'd like to ask any questions about the body and the planets, I will try to help you to understand. It can be kind of confusing. So I think what we'll say, we might as well say goodnight to our YouTube visitors. Thank them for coming along to show 225 on Astrology Unplugged. We'll see you next week, and we'll just keep this within the family here for the rest of the time. Thank you for coming.